everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to day number 13 of Diabetes Awareness Month, November 13th, 2018. I hope you're having a great day. Not too much to really catch up on, but I just wanted to say thanks again if you guys are continuing to watch and support. I appreciate everything you've said or done or commented about. If you are a diabetic and you want to spread awareness, please share these videos with your non-diabetic family or friends. The main thing I wanted to do this for, like I said at the very beginning of my intros, I want to spread awareness about diabetes and put an end to myths and conceptions and just get people to appreciate more for the health that they have, because I definitely took my health for granted more before I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 3 months ago. So, with that being said, let's jump into question 13. Question 13 is, what is the purpose of insulin and how is it dosed accordingly, also known as basal bolus method? I may have mentioned this in previous videos, but the purpose of insulin, insulin is a hormone that is naturally secreted by the beta cells in the pancreas. For people that don't have type 1 diabetes, insulin allows you to use the sugar in your bloodstream, allows the sugar in your bloodstream to be moved from the bloodstream into the tissues so that your body can use sugar for energy. Without insulin, we cannot use sugar for energy, and therefore we end up basically using fat for energy, and we can get really sick and go into diabetic ketoacidosis. If you want to know more about basics of diabetic ketoacidosis, please check out my 5th video in this November Diabetes Awareness Month series. You know, insulin is very important. If we, as a diabetic, especially as type 1s, we don't make any insulin. We need it from an outside source. We need insulin basically multiple times a day to make sure that when we consume carbohydrates, that they can be used for energy, and we also need a certain amount continuously throughout a 24-hour period. So this is where the basal and bolus method comes in. I don't know how many people that don't use this method, but I think it's very common that most people use the basal bolus method. That's what I use. So basically, I'll define basal first. So even in a non-diabetic, when you are not eating, so say you're between meals or you're fasting overnight while you sleep, your body still secretes tiny amounts of insulin to help keep your blood sugar under control. Mainly because even us diabetics and non-diabetics, our livers will spill glucose into our bloodstream at any point during the day. So us type 1 diabetics either have to have a basal rate on a pump, or we have to take a basal insulin once or twice a day to keep small amounts of insulin in our body. Basal insulin is also referred to as slow-acting insulin. We usually take this before bed or right when we get up in the morning. For me, I take it before I go to bed. Again, some people do it multiple times a day, depending on what works for them. For me, I only need to take my basal rate once a day because I'm on a lower dose basal. But you take a set rate amount every night, and it basically, over a course of 24 hours, it'll give you a rate of insulin. For me, in a 24-hour period, I take 8 units of a slow-acting insulin, which means every hour I'm approximately getting a third of a unit of insulin that is helping me keep my blood sugar under control and helps out with excess sugar that may have been in my bloodstream from my liver. Okay, now we'll explain bolus. Bolus is a term us diabetics use when we are going to eat. We take a bolus dose. Typically, this is taken 3 or more times a day. It is also the insulin we use when our blood sugar is high. For a bolus dose, we take rapid-acting insulin. If you're on a pump, you just take a bigger burst of the same insulin. If you're on pens like me, you take a rapid-acting insulin. Basically, once you inject a rapid-acting insulin, within 15 to 30 minutes, it begins working. So if you, like me, don't have a problem with blood sugar spikes as bad, you take your injection and you can begin eating right away, and within 15 minutes to 30 minutes, that rapid-acting insulin will kick in and start taking all the sugar from your bloodstream and converting it and putting it into, giving it to your tissues to use for energy. So, with that being said, some people have to what they call pre-bolus, where they will take insulin and wait 15 to 30 minutes before they eat so that the insulin has a chance to be in the body first before they consume food. For me, I don't have that issue because I am super sensitive to the rapid-acting insulin I take. And also, too, that if our blood sugars are above our target, say our blood sugar is 250, we need to take a correction, we would take an injection of that rapid acting so much to bring it down into our healthy and safe target range. It's very important when you are on pens, like myself, when you take two different types of insulin, that the one you take during the day is the correct one versus at night that you're taking the correct one, because if you accidentally take your bolus insulin or your fast-acting insulin at night, you're going to have a problem, because you better eat a lot of sugar right away or you're going to have a blood sugar drop and you're going to end up having problems overnight. That's the main thing. And again, the bolus insulin is supposed to mimic a non-diabetic's pancreas. So if a non-diabetic eats food, your body begins to break it down into sugar. Sugar goes to the bloodstream. Well, your pancreas will sense, hey, there's a lot of sugar in the bloodstream, so it'll release, instead of releasing small bursts like a basal, it'll release big bursts and faster bursts to bring the blood sugar back under control. So that's why we take two different kinds of insulin, or the same insulin in a pump at two different rates, to kind of mimic a non-diabetic's pancreas as close as possible. So it's either basal, which is slow bursts that kind of keep your blood sugar steady and keep the sugar that's spilling out of your liver under control, or you take big bursts that take care of all the sugar and the food and the carbohydrates you consume. Anyways, let me know if you use a totally different method than basal bolus insulin method, because I'm kind of curious, because I never heard any other method besides those, you take two different kinds of insulin, or you take one kind of insulin at two different rates kind of thing. I never heard any other thing beyond the basal bolus method. I'm sure there were other methods a long time ago, but I think the basal bolus method is most commonly practiced and is probably the most effective at controlling blood sugars, just because it does mimic a non-diabetic's pancreas as close as possible. For me, I take bolus 3 times a day, and I take basal once a day. So I take usually, it's a minimum of 4 injections for me a day. Again, if my blood sugar goes really high in between time and I can't get it down with anything, or it's really high between meals, I will take an extra shot or an injection with my bolus insulin to bring it down. Other than that, it's pretty standard to take your few injections a day, or your few, if you're on a pump, it pumps in a few times a day. And other than that, I think this about sums up this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, please subscribe. Join us for the journey. And if you're returning, I hope you continue to return, and I hope you're having a good day. If you're a type 1 diabetic, I hope your blood sugars are good. Until tomorrow, take care, God bless, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!